Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. In a few minutes, you'll be meeting Dr. Vishal Rao again. He was here some time ago, and you'll meet him again. So, today, our conversation is going to be about specifically what's happening in the state of Karnataka. And Dr. Vishal is somebody who is on a COVID task force, which I'm part of as well. And we're going to start another show from tomorrow, 7 o'clock, where we'll be, talking about what's happening with COVID, etc. We'll talk about that later. So what I wanted to talk about today is, before bringing Vishal on, is number one, like yesterday, please send in your questions. Please send in your comments as you are coming on board, so that we can ask Dr. Vishal those questions. And also, if you have any comments, if you want to say something about your experience or whatever, just say it, because I'd love to read it out and have you be part of the show. I'll read your name out, and then I will talk about whatever your comments are. So please send in your comments, okay? And so that's the brief background about participating and being part of this. So, it's been quite interesting, almost, tonight actually, we are going to be, at 9 o'clock, we are all going to light a lamp or a candle, or we're going to switch the lights off, etc. So we are, in some ways having social distancing, and on the other way, we are also coming together to show the world that we are together. And so in these times, rituals are very, very important, and doing things, in a routine is very, very important. So yesterday I talked about journaling and how we all should journal, etc. In some ways, there's too much of COVID information floating around. There's too many statistics. And, we were chatting today earlier with our neighbors to say we don't know what information is authentic. Even the numbers, they're coming from all kinds of sources. How do you know what's correct and what's not? There's all kinds of theories, there's all kinds of predictions. So while today we will talk about some of the predictions, some of the things that are going on, etc., it's important to understand we are getting it from a person who's in the thick of it, who is a person looking at it with a very, very scientific point of view. And also it's important that we don't get overwhelmed by the numbers, because it could very well make you feel very, very helpless. So 3 things I want you to remember as we go through this. Number 1 is that we are talking to an expert, and if you have any questions, this is the time to ask. And number 2 is that despite all that you hear, despite all the details, stick to your routine. Do whatever you do. Don't worry too much about what could be happening out there, etc. And number 3, which is the most important, is that create different parts in your brain where there's a COVID and non-COVID part. While you take all the information today, etc., create time in the day, time in your work where you're not thinking about this, because otherwise we all could go crazy worrying about what could happen. So with that, I'd like to bring on board Dr. Vishal so he can tell us a little bit about what he's working on. Yes.
Hi, Lakshmi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It was really good to have you last time, and thank you for joining us again today. And I know our days are full, and you've been incredibly busy. And because I've been, trying to talk to you, and you've been very, very busy. So I'm so glad you're here. I thought, last time when you came, you talked about week 1, 2, 3 of test, trace, and treat. So we are getting into the third week right now. How have we done as a country and as a state in test and trace so far? And before we get into the treat side, just give me a little bit of a insight into where we are, how we are doing. I think we're having a little bit of a connectivity problem with Dr. Vishal. So a background to my question is, last time when we were together, Dr. Vishal said is that when you're in a 3-week lockdown, you have to think of it as 3 different parts. The first week is where you test, where you find people are.
We're going to end week 2 on April 10th. So we are in the second phase of week 2. It's a very, very crucial phase. So there are some very, very interesting things that has happened over the last 1 week, 10 days, which I think is very, very interesting to first reflect upon. So I think I'll start with that on when we started the 21-day Corona challenge, we had 3 aspects to the 3 weeks. The week 1 was supposed to be the preparatory phase. The week 2 was supposed to be the phase where we go aggressively testing and tracing people. And the last phase after that was the treatment phase focus. That's how we divided the 3 weeks into 3 T's. Now, very interesting things, has happened of our learnings of the first week. The first week we had actually thought of was for the preparedness. Okay. Now, when we said preparedness, we thought of being prepared with detection kits. We thought of being prepared with personal protection equipments. We thought of being prepared with ventilators, hospital beds, medicines. We had 5 things that we had to be prepared for. And the government of India has done some very significant steps to give directions to state to actively give a larger roadmap, which actually took off on a very positive note. So if you see some of the most best examples that many global nations are today emulating is the aspect of, one is a very quick lockdown and travel shutdown, which has led to, because we were almost on about a month lagging behind Europe. And so very aptly at a crucial point, we've done the lockdown. That itself has helped us curtail. Now, what the WHO says is lockdown is a period when you actually prepare, when you actually build up your armamentarium. Now, in that, the first week has gone by with the preparation. Now, let us today, in week 2, reflect upon on what are we prepared for and what are the lessons we are learning for. And I think that learning will be very crucial for everybody across the country to know how can they help the government. Because I think today, one of the things that I'm seeing as a severe constraint to the government is communicating very effectively on nitty-gritties. So I'm going to play that little role to say about what am I seeing over there and what is the pressures that we are seeing at the state government level, and which reflects with every state that I most likely see. So one of the biggest hurdles when we saw the preparation phase, and one of the learnings that we found, which I want to share with you in today's show, is we found that when we talked about preparation, we had a lot of detection kits. Now, what was really difficult was to get the PCR machines. So this is a very important thing that people need to know, that why are we not able to just suddenly scale up our testing? The main hurdle for that is not the detection kits, because there are a lot of these PCR kits that are available. My lab in India has been approved now, which is a very good test. But although the kits are available, you need a PCR machine to do that. For example, in Karnataka, today we have only 10 PCR machines right now actively functioning, because this is a very costly machine. It's not readily available like a blood count machine. It's a very sophisticated machine that does analysis of certain genes. So that particular machine is not easily available. Number 2, in addition to that machine, you need a BSL-2 lab facility, a lab facility for isolation and sterile, which takes at least 24 hours to 48 hours to be built. The number 3 is you need a trained person who runs the PCR. Okay. And number 4 is ICMR after that has to recognize this particular person. And number 5, after that, when the patient goes there for testing, you need to get an approval from the IDSP committee in the center, which has to approve to say that this patient definitely needs the testing. So it's not been a very easy pathway to just open up and say we'll ramp up testing in lakhs. And that's not been easy. So naturally, the state government suddenly have been put in a frenzy by saying suddenly, how do you ramp up testing? Now, let's say in Karnataka, we have 30 districts. In 30 districts, how many districts do they have ready-made PCR machines? Very, very less. So it's not been easy. And that's something the Karnataka government has taken up on a war footing. Karnataka government is also looking at possibilities of how to expand PCR sourcing. At the same time, looking at the other tests, the serology tests that they are alternatively looking at. But this is something that they are trying to do and work out. And it's a very, very important thing to learn.
Vishal, Dr. Vishal, the screen went off too fast, so I couldn't see the names, but there were a couple of questions. One was asking it's not possible for the government labs alone to do all the work. So the corollary to that is, are there private labs that can do it, or are these PCR machines only in government facilities? And another question was about, shouldn't lockdown be uplifted step by step? I mean, should everybody be under what is the right thing to do? Should everybody be under the lockdown at the same time, or should it be uplifted step by step? So just wanted you to think of answering these as you go along.
No, absolutely. Both of these I will answer, and these both are connected with this question. So number one question is, you asked me about why can't private labs do it? So I reiterate the point. Today, a lot of labs who are interested in doing it cannot do it because PCR machines are not available in 90% of the labs. Okay, less than 10% of the labs actually have a PCR machine. And if you have a PCR machine, you need an isolation facility of BSL-2. And if you have that, you need to have a trained personnel, then you need to have ICR permission. So it's not something that you can just spin off in a day. And over and above that, you need to have committed labs coming forward and saying, we will take the sacrifice and take the financial hit at this particular point, because the government is not ready to right now just roll out schemes on these also. So it's a lot of it's a frenzy that we are facing. It's not been it's been a kind of tight lockdown that we are facing even at the diagnostic points. The second point, then when do we open this lockdown? I think if you see, we've been regularly talking to Mr. Suresh Kumar in the state government, the Minister for Medical Education, who's been corresponding with Tejasvi Surya, with the Chief Minister himself, and with the Health Secretary and others. There's a lot of discussion going on about when to open the lockdown and how to open the lockdown. I think what you need to think back is, we open the lockdown if we have addressed the 3 T's. Have we traced enough of people? Have we treated enough of people? Have we tested enough of people? If the answer to the 3 T's is yes, I think then we are well prepared to open the lockdown. And if the answer is no, I think we need to think about it. So what the government currently must be thinking is, they've got arguments for opening the lockdown and against it. But the baseline to this particular logic is, have we been well prepared in these 3 weeks? And if it's not, we need to buy more time, especially in hotspot areas, to be well prepared.
Yeah. And there was someone, Pooja Yadav, asked, how expensive are the PCR machines?
They cost anywhere between 10 to 15 lakhs.
Okay.
So what the government has now done, ICMR, is they have said that there are a lot of institutions that have these PCR machines, like colleges, institutions that have these machines across Karnataka. They have requested if they can be opened up. And that's something that I think the government is creating a list. Tejasvi Surya is on a war footing, our member of the parliament, trying to look at building that list to see how can he collate all these lists and bring it before the state government and talk to the CM on this. And that's where a lot of ideations are happening at the current level.
Some of the questions are going fast. So Murugesh asked earlier, what side effects could these have on people even when we come out of it? And there's another question about diagnostics labs in India, and are they, then I guess the question is, are there enough trained professionals in our country? So even if a bunch of labs say, okay, I will go buy the thing, do we have trained professionals who can handle it? Because that's another big thing that's needed, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's been a real tough place, because so we've set up a small core team with expert scientists from Indian Institute of Science, with expert scientists from Strand Life Sciences, and a couple of SRL Labs, Anand Labs, there is CanSite. There are many experts who have come forward to say that we are in a closed group through the consultative group going to train these people. So we are actually offering this help to train technicians quickly through Zoom and through other places or through person trainings, so that we are able to ramp up this testing in the next 1-2 days. In the next 48 hours, that's the target we want to achieve, of training more
Okay.
amount of personnel who want help.
Okay. Okay. So another, as I said, one of the questions that Murugesh was asking is, um, even when we come out of it, what side effects do you think it'll have on people? I mean, like, for example, on one hand, some of us may feel this has been amazing and why aren't we doing like this more often, of staying home, working from home? Whereas for some others, or even for us, there's a huge drop in business, and, there's an economy, there's a personal side of things, emotionally, personally, psychologically, there's going to be a huge downturn for all of
Sure.
us, right, when we come out of it. So on one hand, this test, trace, all these things are related to the what do you call problem at hand. Once we come out of it, what sort of things do we need to think of giving our people in terms of psychological counseling or economic packages or whatever? We don't need to answer it today, but I just wanted to acknowledge the question and say that the war is not over just when we get over the virus. It's really how we need to build the people later on. I think a lot of things need to happen. And there's been another question about the PPEs. I mean, do we have enough of those? And somebody saying PCR machines aren't a difficult thing to handle. I, being an undergraduate, have run thousands of samples. It would be nice if ICMR collaborates with private labs, institutions across the country. So I think that's what Dr. Vishal is talking about, is they are trying in the next 48 hours to see how can they get more people trained and certified and okayed by ICMR and all those kinds of things, so that we can expedite the process.
So quickly on those points, I think the first thing that that we should be answering. I mean, I'm sorry, I just lost the sequence of the questions. The first I think we talked about was the impact. What would the impact be post this particular COVID story? So if you see the various scenarios that epidemiologists are predicting on when will this end, we've got people saying by end of May to people saying up to November. That's the kind of range we are talking about today. And in this particular range, what we kind of postulate is that there are three impacts that are going to happen. One is the psychological impact, the behavioral impact, and the economic impact. There are three different type of impacts that we are looking at. When we say psychological impact, we're talking a little more personal impact, in terms of for people who are staying at home, people who are getting into depressions, people who are getting into withdrawals, people who are getting into a complete new way of life. This is creating a psychological toll on them. So psychologists, and I was today talking to to one of the editors of the Indian Psychiatry Associations, and he was telling me about 10 aspects of what we'll need to look at in order to address the psychological aspects. I was also talking to a psychology group who were telling me about how psychologists will need to play a very pivotal role in terms of possibly creating online counselings and people reaching out to them in terms of an online module, through apps, through Zoom platforms. So ECO is a very big international group that has set up online platforms where they're actually trying to bridge this gap. So I think the next few weeks will be a lot of digital psychological connections where people will need to talk about their concerns. The number two part is the behavior.
I also want to say one of our INK fellows has a platform called Your Dose. So, it connects you to psychologists, and it's a, online app. So you can ask questions while remaining anonymous if you want to. So
wonderful. I think Lakshmi, you should write this down and send this message to everybody. I think this
Yeah.
needs to be created awareness about.
Yeah. So your dose is something you guys can look
Your
at.
dose.
So Vishal, go ahead. The
second
second thing.
part is the behavioral. The
Correct.
behavioral part, because this behavioral part could be connected to the psychological aspect very deeply, and this behavioral aspect will be seen in workplaces on my comfort zone, because this particular period has actually questioned our productivity. Can we be
Right.
productive at home, or do we really need to be sitting in our workplaces to be equally productive? And this is also a period of a combined stress. Now, this is a complete new kind of a stress that we've been faced with, where we are at home but yet asked to be productive, and that's called for a lot of innovations in every corporation, organizations, to ask for how are you going to maintain productivity while not being at your workplace.
Correct.
So this
Yes.
is going to make the top, I would say the top brass also rethink strategies. And that's going to be very interesting. If you see the Harvard Business School, it has already started publishing a lot of very interesting literature on this, on how will the leadership be dealing with the crisis post the COVID era.
Correct.
And that's going to be very interesting on the new ways of looking at productivity post the COVID.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last one, I think, will be about the last part will be about the economic one, because I think this particular aspect has re-questioned. It has re-questioned the overall economic. We were all going on a very fast-paced economic drive. In fact, I was talking the other day, and I was saying that this particular phase has actually brought about three different aspects: socialism, capitalism, and communalism. In the midst of this virus, think of it, what actually the society is today dealing with is three larger issues of socialism, capitalism, and communalism, which is shocking. In fact, somebody very sarcastically told me that I think it is humanity that is the virus, and COVID seems to be the vaccine.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what actually is going on today? Why at this brink of this crisis is humanity not becoming united? Why is it that we are pointing fingers, not able to get united, still having egos, not able to work together? Are larger questions that we are answering, and economy is going to be one aspect of this. So we'll have to have a lot more brainstorming that we'll have to do about the larger economical goals. But one thing that I see coming out very strongly is conscious capitalism. Corona will lead to a conscious capitalism era. Wherein now, what we are all thinking about in capitalism also is about a conscious way of capitalism.
Yeah. And I mean, just being conscious itself, it doesn't matter what it is, even if you're in an NGO or wherever you are, to be really, I mean, I think one of the things that everybody's talking about, how nature is coming back full force, whether the dolphins or the ability to see mountains or, greenery or birds, or just in 1 month, there's been a huge shift. So I do want to, we have only 5 more minutes, so there's a couple of things I want to talk about. One is, how close are we or far are we anything about a vaccine? And then I want to talk about our task force, and the program will be starting from tomorrow. So I want to talk about that as well.
Sure. So I think quickly 2 points. The first thing that I would like to say is, currently, since we left out PPEs, doctors are under tremendous stress. Doctors are under tremendous stress. And I'm not saying doctors alone, doctors, healthcare workers, nurses, technicians, and sweepers. They're all under tremendous stress today because, for example, in Karnataka, I was seeing that Victoria Hospital, which is one of the earmarked hospitals for COVID, the doctors team there need 10 times more the encouragement, because they feel somewhere that the entire state hospitals are currently slowing down. Colleges have shut down, most of them. And on one side, there is an entire burden on one single hospital, and that's making them. So we are also trying to see how we can reach out to all these doctors. Rajiv Gandhi University is trying to create a volunteer database of doctors, so that how can we improve the shifts, give more manpower, give them more relaxation, and give them a balanced quality of life. This is what is our responsibility at this point in time, and we owe this to the state.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing is there are many other aspects of it. There is actually a COVID task force that has been set up at state level. Maybe you can talk a little bit about it. And from tomorrow, 7 p.m., we'll be starting a Facebook Live where we'll give you updates of the task force. We have very, very different, we have different types of people, from lawyers to health professionals to scientists to researchers to design thinkers, to all kinds of people are part of it to create a solution for the state as a cohesive force. So, Dr. Vishal, you want to tell us a little bit about
so quickly, Lakshmi. So, the Karnataka state government has created a task force of ministers, and the chief minister also welcomed that if there is a small consultative group that can constantly give them suggestions to help them and assist them. And that's when I think the whole discussion started, and Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya, the former Chief Justice of India, has gracefully agreed to be one of the patrons to actually guide the philosophy of the force. And the Chief
an amazing human
very
being.
positive. Yeah. And I think among the judicial luminaries, he's one of the people who has actually contributed the greatest to the philosophy of judiciary also in the country. So he came forward to say that let's form a small consultative group that will guide the government and assist them. This is not going to be the decision-making one. This is not going to be the one that is trying to take political decisions. This is not going to be the one that's going to disburse funds, but it's going to be the one that is going to collate things together. So, for example, I think through Purvankara, they came forward to donate about 5,000 kits. So we are ensuring that multiple amount of kits are being delivered. We are having to see that we'll work with NGOs to see that we can feed more people on the streets. It's more to see what can collective forces do to join hands and assist the government in a participatory democracy. And so the Chief Minister welcomed this in a very positive way, that the consultative group can actually help them in whatever way, and has asked us to make it more inclusive. He said, let more people come and participate in it, and let them see how can they actually serve the people. You don't need any special permissions, any committees for this. All you need to do is direction on what can we do. So every day when somebody asks you, what can I do for this? And we tell them, okay, look, this hospital needs about 10 personal protection equipment. Can you go there and provide them? So there's no money involved here. It's just the will and the interest to serve the people, And that's
also connecting people with resources. I mean, somebody who's listening may say, hey, I want to donate 10 kits, and there's a process by which we can direct those things. It would really help.
So I think that's where he said that create a bridge wherein the society can keep reaching out to us, also know about, like one such story that I'm talking today about what the government is really struggling with, because they are not able to come out with the real struggles today about how they've suddenly been faced with this. So I think a lot of the truth has to come out about how they are grappling with their situations today, and what we as citizens of the state can contribute many of the times in our homes, but at the same time, what is it that we can give our little contribution to the state? So I think that's where I kind of...
to wrap up, tell us what can, there is a lot of things happening at the front lines. What can people listening here, Aum Janata, people like us, can do to boost the morale of the workers, of the doctors, or what can we do?
I think currently what I am doing, I can tell you that I'm constantly in touch with several groups, creative artists, schools, friends, other people, to tell them that keep just posting for the COVID hospital doctors, the government hospital doctors. For example, in Bangalore, it's the Victoria Hospital. We need to every day send out the message to say that they are all out there leaving their families, leaving their kith and kin to just sit there in double shifts working hard. We need to just salute them for this and congratulate each one.
And we'll figure out a way to post who they are so we can thank them.
Absolutely.
So so much for your time. And from tomorrow, we'll be starting this show at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live. I'll post the details here as well. You can listen to it and listen to all the experts talk to us about what they're doing. And tomorrow evening, we are going to have Alicia Souza, who's an amazing artist. So please join us. And Dr. Vishal, thank you so much. And then I'll see you more often. We start doing the COVID updates from tomorrow.
Thank
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.